So we talked about that Vikings-Commanders game, for Kirk Cousins there. Tom Pelissero is on the scene in Landover, Maryland, and he's got a little bit more.
A little bit of rain right now here in Landover, Maryland, though supposedly it's going to clear up well before kickoff between the Vikings and Commanders. I just talked to Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell, who told me tight end TJ Hawkinson, who was just acquired on Tuesday from the Lions, is going to play a lot today. Coach started working with him about 10 p.m. on Tuesday. He's going to be in most of the packages, including red zone, which means some potential opportunities for Hawkinson to get in the end zone in his debut in Minnesota. Meanwhile, for the Commanders, Terry McLaurin has got 11 catches for over 180 yards and a touchdown in 2 games that he's played with Taylor Heineke. I spoke to Heineke this week, and he told me, listen, this guy is a playmaker. I'm going to give him those opportunities. So look for McLaurin to be targeted a lot again today.
Definitely love Terry McLaurin a lot more with Taylor Heineke. He's kind of unlocked him there. And you heard Tom talking about TJ Hawkinson. We'll dive into that a little bit later on in the show. But wanted to get over to Detroit. And DeAndre Swift is expected to be active today, but the Lions have said they're going to use him sparingly. Now, we know when everything is right, Swift is a guy that has to be in your lineup. But today, this matchup against the Packers, knowing that he's on a pitch count a little bit, would you feel confident having him in your lineup?
I think it puts him not even in the RB2, more in the flex category. But when you're going that deep with 6 teams on bye, there's not as many flex options that bring the same sort of upside as a DeAndre Swift. So as someone who's a big believer in Swift and his capabilities, I still think I would take the home run swing with him. But it always depends on what your other options are. If you have a third running back that you feel really good about, or another receiver on your bench, something like that, that you want to flex over him, fine. But I don't think you're going to have many options with more upside.
That's probably correct. I think the silver lining here is that the Packer run defense ranked 30th in the NFL right now. So even maybe in limited touches, DeAndre Swift could have some production for you there. You saw Ryan Tannehill. He's going to be a game-time decision today for the Tennessee Titans. They have the Kansas City Chiefs later on Sunday. Last week we saw Malik Willis step in. Didn't have to do much. They didn't need him to do much because it was the Derrick Henry show. Whoever the quarterback is today might need to do a little bit more against Kansas City. Does this impact how you feel about the pieces around him? I mean, are you more willing to start, say, somebody like a Robert Woods if it's Ryan Tannehill versus Malik Willis?
Yes, I'm more willing to trust the pass catchers there. But with it being so up in the air and it being a night game, I just want to get away from as many Titans as I can. Like, Derrick Henry is a must-start guy. We know that. After him, I don't think there's a single player on this team that, like, you really have to start as anything more than, like, a deeper option. Like, I'd rather start for fantasy purposes Malik Willis than Ryan Tannehill. But the pass catchers, I think, are all better suited with Ryan Tannehill. Dontrell Hilliard is someone that I think is a deeper sleeper in this game because he's been the pass-catching running back. But even he is someone I think is better suited with Ryan Tannehill than Malik Willis.
Well, you know, I told you before we started this show that I am starting Malik Willis in a Superflex Dynasty League because I have no other quarterbacks. My quarterbacks are on bye or they are injured. So, look, if Ryan Tannehill wants to take another week to just get healthy, I'm cool with that, so I can start Malik Willis in this game against the Kansas City Chiefs. Speaking of needing players to fill a roster, that means it is time for the Waiver Wire presented by KFC. Taking a look at some of the top targets that are available in 50% or more of NFL.com leagues. Justin Fields is out there. Deion Jackson, who should be rostered in more leagues with Jonathan Taylor not available today. Josh Palmer has a good opportunity against the Falcons. Kadarius Toney, your guy, should be in the lineup today against the Tennessee Titans. Rondale Moore going against the Seahawks. Van Jefferson, although he doesn't look likely to play today, now we're finding out, against the Buccaneers. And Evan Ingram, who at this point should just be a start now for a lot of people at tight end taking on the Raiders. But we're talking about waiver wire heroes, the guys who could make a difference in your lineup. Are you going with one of these names, or are you going off menu here?
I've spent a lot of time this week talking about a lot of those players and all year about Kadarius Toney. So I'll go off menu here. I'll go Terrace Marshall Jr. Going up against the Bengals this week. He's just been getting more and more opportunities since they've gotten rid of Robbie Anderson with at least 85% of the snaps the last 2 weeks. 9 targets last week, 3 of which came in the end zone. I think that's where he stands out. He is their best weapon in the red zone there, in the passing game at least. So against the banged up Bengals secondary, if you're going a little bit deeper, Terrace Marshall is a nice streaming option.
That's a good question that I got today. Would you go Terrace Marshall against the Bengals or Darnell Mooney against the Dolphins?
I would take the shot on Terrace Marshall, I think.
All right, that's fair. I'm going to go on menu there. You saw Deion Jackson, who was on that list, and he very much should be picked up and started today against the New England Patriots. I know the Patriots' run defense has been fairly tough, but the thing I like about Jackson and that I've liked about the Colts running game is that they have pretty much been a one-back team, and we have seen it earlier this year. The game in which Jonathan Taylor went down, Deion Jackson played 50 snaps. The week after, when Taylor wasn't available, it was 52 snaps for Jackson. So he's going to get the bulk of the work, and now with no Nyheim Hines there, we should see a good number of targets as well. We saw that a couple of weeks ago. So I think volume is going to win the day for Deion Jackson. And really at this point, with Taylor having been banged up for a good part of the year, it might be worth just holding on to him. If you have that roster spot that you can do that just as insurance in the event that Taylor's injury becomes nagging or he just can't go later in the year, Deion Jackson's a really nice insurance piece there. Time now for 15 for 15, presented by Geico. Let's look at some must-start quarterbacks. Mike, who do you have?
Tua Tagovailoa and his deep ball against the Chicago Bears.
Just start trouble, man.
Justin Fields in that matchup, too. I think both of those guys are going to have a good game. Your guy, Geno Smith, has been playing great ball this year. Justin Herbert in a really good matchup against the Atlanta Falcons. And then that name down at the bottom, Aaron Rodgers against the Detroit Lions. Like, Aaron Rodgers, I know he's the owner of the Bears, but he's also like a part owner of the Detroit Lions. He's averaged 24 fantasy points in his last 3 games against them with 9 touchdown passes and no interceptions. He also low-key has the most multi-passing touchdown games this year. The only issue is he doesn't have a game with 3. The Lions have allowed the second most fantasy points to quarterbacks, and with 6 teams on bye in this matchup, given the history of success he has against them, if you're not playing Aaron Rodgers this week, why is he on your roster?
Why is he on your roster? So you might own the Bears, but it's kind of a timeshare situation with the Lions there. Turning our attention to the running backs, my must-starts, Travis Etienne, who's pretty much becoming a must-start every week. Josh Jacobs, similar situation. This is just to remind people not to panic because he had a bad game last week. Jamal Williams is a must-start, knowing that DeAndre Swift is going to be in a limited situation there, and Raheem Mostert should be in your lineup against a bad Bears run defense. But let's focus in on Leonard Fournette at the bottom, because the Ram defense isn't really bad, and they've actually been tough on running backs. But what will save the day for Fournette here is his ability to catch the football. He's one of just 3 running backs in the top 20 of fantasy that have fewer than 400 receiving yards. But all 3 of those backs, Fournette, Austin Eckler, and Antonio Gibson, are all in the top 8 when it comes to receptions at the position. So even if the game script goes bad, it doesn't really affect Fournette. He can catch the football out of the backfield. He very well could be on the field for all 3 downs, and he should be in your fantasy lineup. So speaking of people who catch the football, let's look at some wide receivers. And who do you have as your must-starts?
Juju Smith-Schuster, who's been playing really well as of late in a good matchup. Tyler Boyd is someone I think that is someone you get in your lineup as long as Jamar Chase is out. Terry McLaurin, we keep talking about how good things are happening with him since the quarterback change. The same thing for DJ Moore, who's back in our fantasy lives now with PJ Walker. And then Tyler Lockett against the Arizona Cardinals. I said a little while ago how great Geno Smith has been playing, and it's only led to good things for Tyler Lockett. And earlier this week, I looked up DK Metcalf's numbers against the Arizona Cardinals and was surprised to see that he really doesn't put up big numbers against them. And then I was like, oh, that's right, because Tyler Lockett hogs all the production against the Cardinals. We've seen him have monstrous games against them. You see there, he's averaging just under 25 fantasy points per game in his last 5 games against them. He has 6 touchdowns in those 5 games. It's a good matchup on paper and one that Tyler Lockett has feasted against throughout his career.
Not bad for a guy that nobody really seemed to want in fantasy drafts this year. Let's round this out with the tight end position, and my must-starts there. Zach Ertz going against those same Seattle Seahawks. Evan Ingram, who has his shot at the Las Vegas Raiders. Tyler Higbee taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers just because he's been a target hog there. And it's Robert Tonyan with a very good matchup against the Detroit Lions. But right there, smack dab in the middle, you got Gerald Everett. And right now, it's a situation where the Chargers just don't have a whole lot of options. I mean, I like Josh Palmer as a sleeper, but that's because Mike Williams isn't going to be there. Keenan Allen isn't going to be there. They need bodies. They need targets for Justin Herbert to throw the football to. On top of it, the Falcons secondary has been awful pretty much all year long. So for a passing game that is kind of underwhelmed this year, Everett, Palmer, these guys are going to get plenty of opportunity. Austin Eckler, of course, we know he's going to get touches as well, but Gerald Everett should be in your starting lineup this week. Remember, you can send us all of your last-minute questions on the Twitter machine at NFL Fantasy. And let's get to a couple of them right here before the break. This one from Jim wants to know Cordero Patterson or Deion Jackson this week?
That's a really tough one. I'm going to lean Deion just because I'm not sure how the workload is going to get distributed in Atlanta, but I like both of their matchups.
I like both of their matchups, but I think I like Jackson more just because, as you mentioned, Patterson has been out for a while. I don't know if I want to plug him in my lineup right away. Next one from Scott, 1-point PPR, Chris Olave or Tyler Lockett, who you were just hyping up a moment ago.
Another one, I like both of these guys a lot, but I would pick Lockett if I had to choose between the two.
I think I want Lockett here too. I think I like the passing game more in Seattle than I do with New Orleans, especially when you're seeing Alvin Kamara get more involved in the offense there too. But I like both guys. I think I like Lockett a little bit more. Time for a break. We watched the Cheetah, Tyreek Hill, getting ready to take on the Chicago Bears. Just that track team that they got down there in Miami.
That fast shouldn't be that jacked.
I know, right? It's just not fair, man. At least he doesn't have height. That's one thing that we have on him. And then Stephon Diggs. We're looking at two of the top receivers in all fantasy football. Stephon Diggs and the Bills getting ready to take on the New York Jets. Now that the trade deadline's come and gone, we're going to talk about the fantasy impact of some of those big moves. Stick around for more of NFL Fantasy Game Day. Chase Claypool, now a member of the Chicago Bears. He will make his debut in his new threads today as the Bears take on the Miami Dolphins. And it's going to be sneaky fun. And another old face in a new place, TJ Hawkinson, who stayed in the division, going from the Detroit Lions to the Minnesota Vikings. So he and his new squad in Maryland to take on the Washington Commanders today. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. He is Mike, I am Marcus, and the NFL trade deadline has come and gone. Of course, the fantasy trade deadline is still a couple weeks away in most leagues, but there are a lot of names of fantasy relevance that traded places and might force you to make some moves on your fantasy roster. So that got us thinking about a poll. Who will get the biggest fantasy bump from being traded? Your options, a couple guys you just saw, Chase Claypool and TJ Hawkinson, Nyheim Hines, and Jeff Wilson Jr. Meanwhile, for us, we're going to put some of those names up on the board and talk about whether or not their stock is going to go up or down for the rest of the season in a segment appropriately titled Stock Up and Stock Down. So let's start with Chase Claypool. We just saw him getting ready there for the Chicago Bears. And in a different situation now there, an offense that, less target share, but maybe fewer targets as well. Stock up or stock down for him the rest of the year?
I think it's kind of a net neutral for him, but if I had to say anything, I would say stock up just because he gets a little bit more opportunity there with targets, whereas on the Steelers, there was Deontay Johnson, George Pickens, Najee Harris taking, oh, there we go. Yeah, he goes up there. I think just more volume means a good thing for Chase Claypool.
I do think more volume means a good thing. Like I said, there's less target competition there. And the Bears offense has started to have some life in the last couple of weeks. I mean, a lot of it has had to do with Justin Fields running the football, but I think that opens some things up in the passing game. And again, with really only Darnell Mooney there, maybe Cole Kmet, I guess, to battle for targets, there could be some more opportunities for Chase Claypool. All right, that gets us to TJ Hawkinson, as we mentioned, going from Detroit to Minnesota. And we heard Tom Pelissero earlier in the show talk about Hawkinson getting a lot of work potentially this week, including down in the red zone. So as we look at this across the rest of the season, is it stock up or stock down for Hawkinson?
It is stock up, and I'm sorry, TJ, you went from one cold place to another, but you got a quarterback upgrade in going into Minnesota, and I know there's Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen there, but he was already dealing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, DeAndre Swift, and others taking targets away in Detroit. So while I'm advocating a wait-and-see approach on TJ Hawkinson, I know he was up early, he was staying up late, he's learning the playbook, but I think long-term, rest of the season, the arrow's pointing up.
I definitely think it's going up. I'm curious to see exactly how much they work him in today, because I know you and I were both advocating to kind of stay away from him this week, but I think in the long term, I think he's going to be fine in Minnesota. Nyheim Hines, who goes from Indianapolis to your Buffalo Bills in I won't say a crowded backfield because Zach Moss is no longer there. We know he can catch passes. Is it going to be enough, though, to tick the arrow up for him the rest of the season?
I'm surprisingly going to put stock down for Nyheim Hines. I know with Sam Ehlinger there, we were saying like, oh, he's not going to get as many targets, but we know that he was a consistent part of the Colts passing attack. In Buffalo now, he's going to have to share that backfield with Devin Singletary. I'm thinking Singletary leads him on the ground, Hines gets the pass work, and then Josh Allen, he's never going away.
That's the thing. Josh Allen's never really going away, and I do wonder, is there going to be enough targets? Are there enough targets for Nyheim Hines to really see an uptick in value there? And I'm kind of skeptical about that myself. All right, next round of guys, we'll start with Jeff Wilson Jr., who reunites with his old teammate Raheem Mostert and his old coach Mike McDaniel in Miami. We know he knows the offense. That's not going to be an issue. Is getting away from Christian McCaffrey enough, though, to have the arrow pointing up for Jeff Wilson?
It is, because Jeff Wilson Jr., I think he kind of stays who he has been in our fantasy lives the last couple of years. He's a solid backup who's going to get some touches each week, probably not enough to have standalone value, but if anything happens to the starter, he then becomes someone that you could just get in your starting lineup. But now he goes from a crowded Niners backfield that has one of the best running backs in the game in McCaffrey, Elijah Mitchell returning at some point. Now he's just behind Raheem Mostert, who sadly we know has missed time in his career.
He has, and I think the good thing for Jeff Wilson is I don't think you have to worry about Raheem Mostert throwing, catching, and running for a touchdown pass all in the same game. Apparently that's in play if you're stuck behind Christian McCaffrey. That moves us on to another running back, and this one is Chase Edmonds, who goes from being really persona non grata in that Miami offense to Denver, which is an incredibly messy backfield situation. So are we up or down on Chase Edmonds?
In the grossest way possible, we are up right now because he was in the doghouse in Miami. He has faded from their run game. He hasn't been used in the passing game as of late. Raheem Mostert has fully taken everything over. So now he goes to Denver, where it is a very crowded backfield. But the hope at least is maybe he can handle some passing duties there. He also is a little bit more explosive than Gordon or Murray, which is something they've missed since they've lost Javonte Williams.
Was not expecting you to say stock up on Chase Edmonds. I felt like we were just sort of completely out on the Broncos backfield. It is, as you said, it is gross. The offense is gross. But you're right, maybe he gets some more opportunity because that wasn't happening for him in Miami the last few weeks. All right, one last one. Calvin Ridley, who we know is gone for the rest of this season at least. He is suspended, but nonetheless, the Atlanta Falcons traded him to the Jacksonville Jaguars. So let's talk about this in terms of dynasty, right? What does this mean going forward from here? Is it stock up or stock down on Calvin Ridley, getting away from an offense that apparently is allergic to throwing the football?
That's the thing. That is why Calvin Ridley, stock up right now. I'm in a giving mood. Everyone is getting stock up right now. But the truth is, Calvin Ridley, one of the best field stretching receivers in the league. We know this. We know how great of a talent he is. Now he's going to go to a team that isn't allergic to throwing the ball. And they already have some good young playmakers. And like the Jacksonville Jaguars offense next year with Ridley, Kirk, and Travis Etienne, you're cooking with fire.
That is really going to be kind of awesome. I do love that you're like fantasy Oprah right now. You get a boost. You get a boost. Everybody gets a boost. What we're going to do right now, though, is take a break because we need to catch our breath a little bit. Check it out. Justin Jefferson, one of those guys that makes us think that wide receivers should be awesome every single week.
What is he wearing?
What is he wearing? He looks like a supervillain right now. Anyway, he and the Vikings getting ready to take on the Washington Commanders. And Mac Jones, he is back under center, at least for now, until something bad happens, and then maybe Bailey Zappi steps back in. But for now, it is McCorkle Jones getting the start for the New England Patriots. We'll see what he has to offer. In the meantime, coming up next, we're talking sleepers. That's on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. Tua Tagovailoa, who Michael Florio tweeted could throw the deep ball.
A lot of people didn't like that.
Terrell Owens agreed with you, though.
That's all I need.
You got a quarterback. Got a quote tweet from Terrell Owens validating his talk about Tua throwing the deep ball there. Dolphins and Bears a little bit later. And on the other side, Justin Fields, who has been running for about 76 yards a game in the last 3 games. And I put it into perspective, that equals about 190 passing yards when you're looking at fantasy points. Just in case you always wondered about why we love running quarterbacks so much, there is a big big disparity.
Could be the game of the week, low-key, I think.
Low-key could be
Fun young
the game of the week. Should be a lot of fun there between the Bears and the Dolphins. Welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. I'm Marcus. He is Mike. Keep firing off your questions to us on Twitter at NFL Fantasy. Let's get to a couple of them right now, if we dare. Let's see, this one coming from, what, Go Demon? Whatever. With Andrews out, would I be better off starting Justin Fields over Lamar this week in a PPR? Interesting.
As much as I love Justin Fields, and I've been hyping him up all week, I never sit Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, it's hard to sit Lamar, man. Like, the ceiling is just way too high. I get the concern, but, you know, he may have Isaiah Likely. It'll be all right. Zero asking, PPR, flex Dobbs, Thielen, or Eno Benjamin?
We don't know if James Conner's going to play or not by the time you have to make this decision, so I'll go Romeo Dobbs there.
Yeah, I like Dobbs. I've been taking shots at Packers this week because it feels like if you can't start Packers this week, you'll never be able to start any of your Packers. There you go. So we'll get to some more of your questions a little bit later on in the show. Let's keep a look at the inactives to pay attention to. James Robinson is active. Cordero Patterson is active, though we don't know how much he is going to play. Damian Harris inactive, but DeAndre Swift, he should play, though he is expected to be limited in this one. Josh Reynolds, a no-go for the Lions. Allen Lazard is back after a shoulder injury. Darren Waller, still out of action. He nurses a hamstring issue. And a look at some of the late-game injury situations. Ryan Tannehill, a game-time decision. We don't know if it will be him or Malik Willis getting his second start. James Conner, as Florio just mentioned, we're still waiting on word from him. Cam Akers, expected to play against the Buccaneers. Van Jefferson, questionable, probably not expected to play against Tampa Bay. Time now for Fantasy Insurance, presented by Geico. We are talking about the moves that can make or break a lineup, a.k.a. some sleepers for the week. So, Florio, who is yours?
Julio Jones, who I don't think it's ever really been a question of if Julio Jones can still play. It's just a matter of is Julio Jones able to play? And right now he is. He's healthy. He is on the field. He returned to practice this week as well, which was a great sign to see. He had 3 red zone targets last week, and I think that is huge because that's where the Bucs offense has really been struggling this year. They've been okay at getting the ball downfield, getting into field goal territory, getting into the red zone. They haven't been great at punching it in. So just having another weapon of Julio Jones' size, I think, goes a long way. And Jalen Ramsey probably going to be more on Mike Evans or Chris Godwin, which could mean a couple more targets for Julio Jones as well.
Just nice to see Julio healthy again. It's been a while, it feels like, since he's been fully healthy. For me, I'm looking at Jamal Williams. And I like Jamal Williams this week anyway, just because the Packer run defense has been bad, but now you factor in that DeAndre Swift is expected to be on a bit of a pitch count, expected to be limited. That means more opportunity for a guy who has already dominated all the goal line opportunities for this Lions offense, a guy who is second in the NFL in total touchdowns behind only Nick Chubb. When we talk about this Lions offense being super productive and one of the highest scoring outfits in the league, a lot of that is owed to Jamal Williams, who has been consistent, rushing for 50 yards or more in just about every single game he's played, so he absolutely should be in lineups this week. We talked about the Bears and Dolphins low-key being a lot of fun today at Soldier Field. Stacey Dales is on the scene there, and she filed this report.
Hey guys, Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa leads the NFL with 9 yards per pass attempt and a 113 passer rating. But his efficiency downfield has been his biggest improvement. In fact, that passer rating on passes of 10 or more yards this season compared to his first 2 seasons in the league has nearly doubled. Certainly helps to have 2 speedy receivers in Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill, who actually lead the NFL in receiving yards on downfield targets this season. Expect another heavy dose of them. Safety Eddie Jackson with the Bears telling me the biggest message defensively is depth. Don't let those 2 get behind you, or it will make for a long day. For the Bears, Chase Claypool added to the team this week. He will play. Matt Eberflus, the head coach, saying maybe 10 to 35 snaps. Regardless, he adds a big play receiver for Justin Fields. But make no mistake about it. These Bears lead the NFL in rush yards, coming off a 240 rush yard performance against the Dallas Cowboys in a loss. It'll be a lot of Khalil Herbert, a lot of David Montgomery, and a lot of the quarterback. Justin Fields, remember, just second in terms of quarterbacks in running the football to Lamar Jackson this season. Guys?
Thank you, Stacy. She mentioned Chase Claypool there, and we saw him earlier in his warm-ups there. What effect will adding Chase Claypool have on Justin Fields and this Bears offense?
I said earlier when we were talking about the winners and losers that he was kind of a net neutral for his Chase Claypool's fantasy value, but I think the biggest winner of this trade is Justin Fields because they haven't been asking Fields to throw a whole bunch, but when he has, it's like Darnell Mooney, Cole Kmet, and a whole lot of like meh behind them. Now, Chase Claypool is a legit receiver who can win downfield, win 50-50 balls, will be a big body presence in the red zone. So I just think when Justin Fields throws now, he's throwing to a higher quality target.
I know the Steelers were sort of using Chase Claypool in the slot, and I'm curious whether or not the Bears do the same to give themselves kind of a big slot target, leaving Mooney on the outside. Curious to see how he fits in here. 10 to 35 snaps. That's kind of a wide range there, Matt Eberflus. Just saying. Next burning question. The trade deadline has come and gone. As we mentioned, Cam Akers did not get moved. Neither did Brandon Cooks. What do you expect from both of these guys now going forward the rest of the year?
Different things, right? Like Cam Akers is trending up right now. He's back with the Rams. He was at practice this week. He's going to play this week. We're not sure what his workload is going to look like, but I think we could still make the case that Cam Akers is the most talented Rams running back. I don't think that's ever been a question. It's off the field stuff. For Brandon Cooks, though, talk about off the field stuff. Like he's sending cryptic tweets out and stuff. Like it seems like he's not very happy to be there right now. I know they were saying on TNF that they expect him back next week, but for right now, I think you got to kind of take a wait-and-see approach and plan on not having Brandon Cooks, at least until we see him return.
I mean, Cooks did not play on Thursday night, and even though the Texans lost, they put up a fight against the Eagles. And Chris Moore stepped in, had a really nice game, so they may be trying to make contingency plans depending on what happens with Brandon Cooks for the rest of the year. Last burning question, what is Isaiah Likely's fantasy value both with or without Mark Andrews in Baltimore?
So without Mark Andrews, I think he's a top 10 tight end that you definitely want to have in your starting lineup this week. If Mark Andrews plays, I still think Isaiah Likely is a streaming option for you at the tight end position just because no Rashad Bateman. They're thin right now in Baltimore, so he should have a role, could see the same amount of targets, but obviously we like him a lot more if Andrews sits.
I definitely feel like this week you should start Isaiah Likely regardless, even if Mark Andrews plays, just because he's sort of doubtful right now. Even if he plays, you wonder how limited he's going to be. And with no more Rashad Bateman, there could be some targets for Isaiah Likely. The guy played well in the preseason, had a big game last week, and definitely has some talent. Time to take a pause for the cause. We're going to step away for a quick break. For that, though, take a look at Sam Ehlinger, who is the quarterback of record now for the Indianapolis Colts. See if he can keep that offense moving in the right direction today. And Taylor Heineke, the man who has unlocked Terry McLaurin for us this year. We'll see what he can do against that Vikings defense. Stick around. Coming up next on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico, we're previewing Bills and Jets. Stay tuned for that. During the break, we were having a conversation here about Tua Tagovailoa and the deep ball. This is a guy who could be catching a deep ball or two from Tua. Jalen Waddle getting loose there on the field at Soldier Field as the Dolphins get ready to take on the Chicago Bears in Week 9. And Zach Wilson, he has got a task ahead of him today, taking on the Buffalo Bills. Bills trying to just stay on track, remain atop the AFC and the AFC East in particular. We'll see if Zach Wilson and the Jets can hashtag take flight against them. Our poll today, you can see the results here at NFL Fantasy. Who will get the biggest fantasy bump from being traded? Right now, TJ Hawkinson is your leader. Chase Claypool, Nyheim Hines, and Jeff Wilson Jr. were the other candidates there. So people big on the tight end. I think it's just because we're thirsty for tight end love right now.
And I think Hawkinson is the biggest name as well that was dealt, so people tend to like to click. I agree, though. I think he's the biggest winner.
He probably is the biggest winner of all those guys that we have on our list. Of course, so welcome back to NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. You can keep sending us your questions at NFL Fantasy. Let's get to a couple more of them right here. This one from Philip asking, is Kadarius Toney worth a start today? I know your answer, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Is Kadarius Toney worth a start today?
Yes, he's the wide receiver 1 in the league. No, I think it depends on your option. I actually put out a tweet a little earlier this morning about some receivers I would play him over. I don't think he's a must start, but I think he is a sleeper that brings a lot of upside.
Excuse me, I've been saying if you are in a 12-team league, he's worth consideration. If you're in a 14-team league, I would definitely start him today against the Tennessee Titans. I do think Andy Reid's going to have some things drawn up for him in this game today. Next one from Zachary wants to know, Kirk or Fields? So Kirk Cousins or Justin Fields? Who do you want?
I'm going to go with Justin Fields there. I like both of them in their matchups, but like you said, Justin Fields, the rushing numbers is it's like he starts off with 200 passing yards already, so give me Justin Fields.
I will definitely take Justin Fields in that one too. I don't know, maybe this may be a big Dalvin Cook game too for the Vikings, who knows, but Justin Fields is the guy that I want there. Time now for flex starts. Florio, who is the guy that's going in that little flexible spot in your lineup?
Joshua Palmer, because if not now, then when? Like no Keenan Allen, no Mike Williams, and it's a smash matchup as well against the Atlanta Falcons. So right now on the year, the Falcons have allowed the most fantasy points to receivers. They've also allowed the most targets, catches, and yards. So basically everything except for touchdowns. And since week 2, Palmer's been second in all of those categories amongst Chargers receivers, but you add in the fact that no Williams, no Allen, it's just going to be more volume. I think it's going to be a lot of him, DeAndre Carter, and Gerald Everett making up for the loss of those two.
Yeah, that was why I said Gerald Everett is a must start, just because they are down some targets in this offense this week. I like Allen Lazard, and we keep saying this. This is a week that you can sort of lean on your Packers. Lazard's the guy that maybe doesn't have the highest ceiling. I mean, we like Romeo Doubs, but he does seem to be the guy that at least has a good chunk of Aaron Rodgers' trust, and we know how important that is. The guy that you know you can go to and he'll make a play for you. And he's also a guy that they seem to like down near the goal line, knowing that the Lions score a lot of points but give up a lot of points. Maybe this ends up being a higher scoring game. Certainly like the running backs for Green Bay, but if you're picking a pass catcher, Allen Lazard, not a bad option there. So we saw Zach Wilson getting loose for the Jets. They've got a big one today as they host the Buffalo Bills. Mike Garafolo is at MetLife Stadium, and he's got a little bit more.
What a matchup we have here at MetLife Stadium between the Jets and the Bills, specifically between Sauce Gardner and Stephon Diggs. We know what Diggs has been doing this season. We also know, thanks to Pro Football Focus, what Sauce Gardner has been doing at the cornerback position in his rookie year. The highest pass coverage grade for the service, and in man coverage, only 26 yards allowed in 100 snaps in man coverage. So when those two line up, something has got to give right there, so keep an eye on that. As for the other side of the football in the passing game there, I talked to Jets coach Robert Saleh. He said, I can draw up a bunch of holes in our defense that we can disregard because we know our pass rush is getting home. The same thing is happening with the Bills. Teams are trying to take their shots, but they're playing so good up front that they can't make it happen. He goes, we're going to try just like those other teams have, but they want Zach Wilson to be smart with the football. And by the way, that football now going to Denzel Mims, the receiver who asked for a trade in the past, is now a key part of the offense for the Jets. Corey Davis is out. I'm told Mims will get all of his snaps, so look for him to potentially make an impact.
We could do a whole segment on what's going on with the Jets wide receivers. Denzel Mims wanted out. They're making him a part of the offense. Elijah Moore wants out. They're like, no, you got to stay, but we're not going to give you the ball. That's a whole saga unto itself. Anyway, time for Who Scores, presented by DraftKings Sportsbook. We are looking deeper at that game. DraftKings is projecting Stephon Diggs to have 6.5 catches for 81.5 yards. Where do you have him projected?
Kind of somewhere in the middle there. I have a down game for Stephon Diggs where I have him for 7 catches for 74 yards and a touchdown. That equates to about 20.5 fantasy points, which by his standard this year is a down game. And I know what I'm really curious to see is how much Sauce Gardner is going to be lining up opposite of Stephon Diggs, because a week ago we thought that was going to be Jair Alexander, and he was shadowing Gabe Davis, and they were throwing a double on Stephon Diggs. But either way, Diggs is one of the best route runners. He's shifty. He is going to get open. Even if Sauce Gardner limits how many times he gets open, I still think him and Josh Allen will connect as they do.
It's so funny, 20.5 points. Like, oh, that's a down game. That's how good Stephon Diggs has been this year. On the other side, there is Garrett Wilson, and DraftKings projects him to have 4.5 catches for 47.5 yards, and I'm pretty much right on par with that. I've got him for 5 catches for 50 yards. That's an even 10 points. I think what will work in Wilson's favor is potentially a negative game script. The Bills are a big favorite in this one, so it means the Jets likely will be playing from behind, meaning that Zach Wilson's going to have to throw the football to catch up. Wilson is the #1 target there, but I don't necessarily love him to have a huge game against that defense. You heard Mike Garafolo talk about that pass rush for Buffalo, which has made things hard, which also means that it's going to put pressure on Zach Wilson, and he has a tendency to turn the ball over when he is under pressure. So I think you're looking at just a mediocre game from Garrett Wilson in this one. Get in on the hottest sports action for your shot at cold, hard cash with DraftKings Sportsbook. Bet on your favorite sports all season long and gear up for football season. Right now, new customers can get a special offer when they sign up using promo code WHOSCORES. Time for a break. Here is Michael Carter. He now the lead running back there in New York after the injury to Breece Hall. We'll see how much James Robinson we see in this one, but there may not be a good game script for the Jets running backs there. And a couple of Bears. Chase Claypool, Justin Fields. What do you call a group of bears? Like a pod or a herd?
Pack?
Pack? I don't know. Anyway, Sunday Funday is coming up next after the break on NFL Fantasy Game Day. Josh Allen suited up, getting loose as the Bills get ready to take on the New York Jetropolitans. Buffalo trying to stay hot, stay in the driver's seat there in the AFC for the home field advantage in the playoffs. Kirk Cousins and the surprising Vikings. Are the Vikings actually good?
I think so, and even more, I'm hoping he screams "you like that" if they win.
That would be amazing if he runs off the field there in Landover and screams "you like that," just to remind the Commanders fans what it is that they're missing. Vikings Commanders coming up in just a little bit. Time now for 15 minutes to kick off, presented by Geico. One last look at the early game injuries to take note of. James Robinson expected to play. Cordero Patterson expected to play, though we don't know how much. No Damian Harris, but DeAndre Swift will be back on a limited basis today. Josh Reynolds is inactive. Allen Lazard is active. But no Darren Waller for the Las Vegas Raiders. Back here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. He is Mike. I am Marcus. You can keep sending us your questions. We'll try to get to a couple of them now. But, of course, we'll make Aaron answer the rest of them because he doesn't like kale. Tyler Algier or Jeff Wilson? Tommy wants to know.
I'm going to still go with Algier here because I love the matchup. I think he's explosive. And even when Patterson was active early on in the year, he had a role.
You had a role, and I just don't know how much they're going to lean on Cordero Patterson in his first game back after an extended absence. So I would go Algier as well. This one from Michael. Ingram or Likely as tight end in a full PPR?
If we knew for sure Andrews wasn't playing, it's very, very close. But with the slight chance that Andrews could suit up, I would just play Evan Ingram there.
Yeah, I think Ingram's probably the guy. But I said, look, if you have tight end questions, or even if you have Mark Andrews, might be worth going to get Isaiah Likely right now. All right, it is Sunday Funday time. We got the air horns here. Let's go around with our superlatives for Week 9. Today's top scorer was going to be
DeAndre Hopkins, who has been amazing since he's returned. Like, at least 13 targets in every game, over 100 yards. We've seen him get into the end zone last week. And I know on paper, the Seahawks are a tough matchup, but D-Hop has a history of success against them. He leads the NFL in receptions since he came in. And this is just a thing where, Marcus, I think the Seahawks offense will put up points against the Cardinals, which means Kyler Murray and the Cardinals will have to throw, which means even more volume for DeAndre Hopkins.
See, here's the thing about DeAndre Hopkins. He's good. Also who is good is Travis Etienne, and you can't spell eating without E-T-N. See what I did there? Anyway, what we love about Etienne is that he's explosive. He's a big play guy. And now with no James Robinson there, he is getting the majority of the carries in that Jacksonville backfield. And he's got a great matchup against the Las Vegas Raiders. You see there, 356 rush yards in the last 3 weeks for Etienne, most in the league. I expect him to continue to flourish in that Jacksonville offense today against Las Vegas. All right, next up, the must-start QB of the week is
the guy we've been hyping up all week, at least I have, Justin Fields. He has been playing really good football as of late, but what I love is the designed runs. And that's the thing. It's 60 or more rushing yards in 3 straight. He's top 23 fantasy points in each of the last 2, all because of his legs. He has more designed runs in the last 2 weeks than he did in the first 6 weeks combined. He also, in the last 3 weeks, has more rushing yards than Alvin Kamara, Aaron Jones, Christian McCaffrey, Ramondre Stevenson, Joe Mixon. Yeah, a lot of those were first-round pick running backs. That's the type of production that you're getting out of Justin Fields right now.
Justin Fields has been amazing the last few weeks. Geno Smith has been amazing pretty much all season long, which is something that nobody saw coming. This is a guy who has been a top 10 quarterback all year long. The Seahawks offense has been cooking. The Cardinals defense is not very good. So you've probably been starting Geno. Look, chances are if you have Geno Smith, you may have another quarterback on your roster who's also been pretty good, but it's been hard to get him out of your lineup, and I just don't see a way that you can sit him today against Arizona. Let's look in the backfield for our must-start running backs of the week, especially in a week with 6 teams on a bye and a lot of good running backs have the week off. Who is a must-start for you there?
I know you start this guy every week, but Aaron Jones, because it's against the Detroit Lions, and he historically has gone off against his team. Cynthia Freeland joked in the week that if Aaron Rodgers owns the Bears, Aaron Jones owns the Detroit Lions, because he scored 41 or more fantasy points in 2 of his last 3 games against them. In those 3 games, 7 touchdowns. And then not only that, like the Lions, you could just run all over them this year. They've allowed the most touchdowns to running backs, the 4th most fantasy points, so it's a great matchup. Aaron Jones has been a little bit up and down this year, but I think this is a week where we're going to see his ceiling.
I think you see his ceiling. I also think A.J. Dillon has some sleeper appeal this week against the Detroit Lions. I'm going to go with Raheem Mostert, though, as a must-start running back, and he's kind of earned that over the course of the season. He's part of the reason that Chase Edmonds now collects mail in Denver, because he's been so good. And even with Jeff Wilson there, Mostert is going to be the lead back. The Bears have been a defense that we have picked on when it comes to running backs and opposing running games, because they have struggled in that area. The Dolphins, for all their explosiveness in the air, they still do want to run the football under Mike McDaniel. And on top of it, we've seen Mostert get a few more targets lately, so that only increases his fantasy production. Speaking of catching the football, our must-start wide receivers of the week. Who do you have?
I'm going with a Chiefs receiver, but maybe not the one that you all expect me to go with. It's Juju Smith-Schuster, who has been playing really good football the last 2 games. He topped 22 fantasy points in each of those, with over 100 yards in both of those games. So after a slow start, getting more volume and doing more with that volume, that is the key thing there. 7 red zone targets over the last 4 weeks, the 2nd most in the NFL. And then the Titans. They struggled against pass catchers last year. They're struggling against them this year. They're in the top 6 in fantasy points allowed to receivers.
Yeah, remember the Titans when it comes to starting your fantasy wide receivers. You like that? I like Tyler Boyd as well this week. Look, I like T. Higgins. You're starting T. Higgins for sure. But Tyler Boyd the last couple of weeks has reminded us he's a very good football player. And with no Jamar Chase in the Bengals offense, there have been more opportunities for Boyd, and he has made the most of them. I think you're going to see him have another good game this week against the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers have been feisty the last couple of weeks, and maybe they put up some points, which forces Joe Burrow to go to the air a little bit. And so I think Tyler Boyd definitely deserves a spot in your lineup, at least as a flex, maybe even a wide receiver too, depending on your situation. Tight end. We always are looking for help at tight end. Who is your must-start this week?
We've referenced him a lot. Earlier this show, you said this guy should just be a starter. I said I would play him over Isaiah Likely a couple minutes ago. It's Evan Ingram, who, at this point, he's not just a tight end that you should be picking up off the waiver wire. Like Marcus said, he is someone that you should just be starting. He has at least 6 targets in 4 straight games with 9 or more fantasy points in each of those, double digits in 3. He's coming off of his best game as a Jaguar last week, where he scored his first touchdown with the team, and then it's a good matchup. You see on the screen there, the Vikings allowed the the Raiders allowed the 3rd most fantasy points to tight ends. They also have allowed the 3rd most touchdowns to the position. So Evan Ingram playing well in a good matchup. Get him in your starting lineup.
Just when we thought it was safe to say goodbye to Evan Ingram, he puts up a good season. Hey, have you noticed the theme? We keep talking about starting Packers against the Detroit Lions, so let's just keep it rolling with Big Bob Tonyan, who I mentioned Alan Lazard as a guy who has Aaron Rodgers' trust and is going to get some targets. Robert Tonyan definitely fits in that category as well. And he's been sort of up and down, but then again, that's the nature of the fantasy tight end position. But this feels like an opportunity to really get him in there. You see there on the screen, leads the team in receptions this season. So we know where Aaron Rodgers is going with the football when things start to break down. And look, with Rodgers kind of subtweeting some of his teammates about who should and shouldn't be on the field, I feel confident that Robert Tonyan is not one of those guys. Defense, because defense wins fantasy championships too. Who's a must-start this week?
I know when people look at like defenses or offenses to pick on with their fantasy defenses, they probably think of like the Jets, the Texans. Nope. The Rams have been the best defense to go against, so the Bucs are a must-start defense this week. The Rams, their O-line has been struggling mightily, which leads to a lot of pressure on Matt Stafford. Well, the Bucs are 4th in the NFL in sacks this season. Plus, Stafford has more interceptions than touchdowns this year. Just one game with multiple passing touchdowns. Start defenses every week against the Rams.
Well, because the Rams' offensive line has been bad. The Colts' offensive line has been bad too, which is why I think you can start the New England Patriots. And they are rostered in well over 90% of NFL.com leagues, which means you're not going to just snag them off the waiver wire and plug them into play. But if you have them, you're absolutely starting them. Sam Ehlinger has brought a nice option, nice element to this offense, but they still are struggling up front to protect him. They're struggling to run the football consistently, and I do think the Patriots can get some sacks and some turnovers, which is what you need out of a fantasy defense. That gets us to our bold prediction for the week. I want like an echo. Bold, bold, bold. if you're getting crazy, what are you going to say about Week 9?
When you were talking about Tyler Boyd a little while ago, you said you like him as a start, T. Higgins as a must start. I'm going to double down on that. I think both of these guys will be top 10 wide receivers this week, and it's partially because the Carolina Panthers have struggled against receivers so much, but the real reason is they're third and fewest in sacks this year, so I expect Joe Burrow to actually have time to get his receivers the ball this year.
That's going to be important. I'm looking at a young quarterback in Trevor Lawrence, who I think accounts for four touchdowns today, whether it's through the air or on the ground, because we know he can run for scores as well. I think he accounts for 4 touchdowns in a big offensive performance against the Las Vegas Raiders. Before we go, one quick last look at our poll for today. Who's going to get the biggest fantasy bump from being traded? TJ Hawkinson is your winner, with Chase Claypool coming in second, Nyheim Hines third, and Jeff Wilson bringing up the rear. So you guys all love TJ Hawkinson. I totally get it. In the meantime, got teams coming out on the field. That means we'll wrap it up here on NFL Fantasy Game Day, presented by Geico. We appreciate you walking. Enjoy Week 9, everybody, and we'll talk to you again next Sunday.
On 1st and goal, Eckler with an opening on the left side. Eckler lunging over for the touchdown.
And Mariota is going to go deep, and he's got the connection. All the way into the end zone goes Jameer Byrd, his first catch of the season.
Tua looking deep, he's got a man. Touchdown, number 2 for Waddle.
Takes some hands off. Herbert on the cutback to the 10, to the 5, out the end zone. Touchdown, touchdown Bears.
Drops back, rolls to his left, airs it deep downfield for DJ Moore, behind his man. Oh,
yeah!
DJ Moore!
Nixon drops back, throws it deep downfield. Higgins high points the ball, makes the catch, and runs into the end zone. And the Bengals score on the 41-yard strike.
Rodgers protected, flipping to the corner of the end zone for Dobbs. He turns around, did he bring it in? Yes! What a catch by Romeo Dobbs for the touchdown.
3rd down and 5. Goff to Swift. Touchdown. Welcome back, DeAndre Swift.
2nd down 10. This is Jacobs. Oh, he finds a gap. He squeezes through. They can't bring him down. Then finally Matthews takes him down from behind with a nice run. Lawrence looking left, looking middle, throws left side to the end zone, has a man caught. Touchdown Jaguars.
Drops the pass, settles in, floats it downfield, and it is picked off by the Colts. They're running the other way with it, and it's Shaq Leonard, the takeaway machine.
Jones will throw it. Open man. Catch made. Myers is in. Touchdown, New England. The Patriots take the lead.
Allen's hit his last 8 passes, looking for Diggs in the end zone. That's a touchdown for Buffalo.
Wilson lets it fly. Touchdown. Tyler Conklin. And the Jets are still in it.
Cousins looks to the middle of the field. And he's already run for a 1st down. Can he run for another one? Can he run for a touchdown? Diving to the end zone. That's a Viking touchdown. Kirk Cousins.
Heineke looking. Heineke. They keep the play alive again. He flips it downfield, and McLaurin, the hometown kid, hauls it in at the 1-yard line. What a grab. He ripped it away from Stephon Gilmore.
Double move. Lockett on the sideline. In for the touchdown. Redemption for Tyler Lockett.
Tyler's toss is good. Back to Rondale Moore. Stretches out of it. He's going to go into the end zone, and that's going to be a Cardinal touchdown.
Shotgun snap, Stafford ready to deal. Survey now wins one to the end zone. Cooper Kupp. Touchdown LA. On the S in Rams, Stafford finds his favorite target for the go-ahead score. It's 13-7 LA.
Power pistol look to drop it to Brady. Throws a deep ball down the near sideline. Intended for Mike Evans. He will make the catch on the 20-yard line. He's to the 15 to the 13-yard line. What a throw and what a tremendous catch by Mike Evans.
Give it to Henry, 25-20, 15, outside to the 10, stiff arm dives over the pylon, touchdown! That was a man-sized run by the man, Derrick Henry.
Picked up, Mahomes wide open. It's Juju Smith-Schuster, one man to beat, trying to get to the end zone. He will for the touchdown.
picking up 16 yards on the first 2 plays. Here is Algier across midfield. Another Atlanta first down, still going. Tyler Algier is finally brought down at the Chargers' 15-yard line. He gains 44.
Tyler Algier, one of the rookie running backs that they rave about, but this is the reason why they have so much success. They run away from the down safety, Nasir Adderley, and because the linebackers did not rotate all the way over, it creates that edge on the other side, and they're short a defender. If the Falcons can continue to run away from the down safety and have that success, look at the blocking downfield.